My name is Amelia Reed, but everyone calls me Amy. I am 34 years old, and last Tuesday, my entire world tilted on its axis. It happened the moment I checked my lottery ticket and realized I had just won $53 million. My hands trembled so violently, I could barely hold the flimsy piece of paper, staring at the 6 numbers that aligned perfectly with my fate. After the initial wave of nauseating shock subsided, a strange, cold clarity washed over me. I would tell absolutely no one about this money. You see, when it comes to finances, my family history is a battlefield littered with broken promises and emotional IOUs. If you're watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from. Before I unravel this life-altering decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more true stories about loyalty, betrayal, and the complex ties that bind us. Stories that might just make you look at your own relationships in a whole new light. Before that fateful Tuesday, my life was painfully, achingly ordinary. I worked as a data analyst for a volatile tech startup in Seattle, earning just enough to be comfortable, but never enough to breathe. My apartment was a modest one-bedroom on the city's fringe, a place where the hum of the freeway was a constant companion. It was nothing special, but it was mine. Each morning, I'd wake at 6 a.m., the scent of brewing coffee mixing with the persistent anxiety of deadlines and bills that hung in the air like a permanent fog. The job was a meat grinder. 60-hour work weeks were the norm, especially during quarterly reporting. My family was a tangled knot. My parents, Richard and Helen Reed, divorced when I was 14, and both remarried with bewildering speed. My father, Richard, a community college history professor, married a woman named Stephanie, a luxury car salesperson with tastes that far outstripped his academic salary. My mother, Helen, married Warren, a man who owned a chain of successful hardware stores and held on to every dollar with a grip so tight his knuckles were permanently white. I have 2 siblings. My younger sister, Chloe, is 30 and has forever been draped in a golden glow of approval. She graduated from a prestigious university, married a cardiologist named Mark, and now resides in a sprawling suburban home with 2 children who look like they were plucked from a clothing catalog. Then there's my older brother, Leo, 36. For all his charm and sharp intellect, Leo has never quite found his footing. He drifts between jobs and relationships, a connoisseur of crises who has perfected the art of borrowing money. The script was always the same. A desperate late-night call, a story dripping with emotion, a solemn promise to repay, and then radio silence until the next catastrophe. The extended family was no less of a minefield. My Aunt Clara, my mother's younger sister, was perhaps the only genuine soul in the entire clan. A public school librarian, she lived paycheck to paycheck, but always showed up when it mattered. She drove a sputtering, ancient Toyota, lived in a tiny apartment overflowing with books and thriving plants, and never once complained about her lot in life. In stark contrast was my Aunt Beatrice, my father's older sister, who had married into old money and wielded it like a weapon. Holidays with her were an exercise in enduring critiques about my career, my apartment, and my perpetually single status. Her son Ryan had inherited her sense of entitlement, but none of her husband's business acumen, and nursed a gambling problem the family tacitly ignored. My history as the family's unofficial lender had left me deeply jaded. When Leo needed $5,000 for rehab 3 years ago, I drained my savings, only to later discover him posting pictures from a wellness retreat in Mexico that looked suspiciously like a beach resort. When Chloe needed help with her lavish wedding costs, I put $2,000 on my credit card, a debt I was still paying off 5 years later. When my father needed a loan for a new roof, I sent what little I had, only to see photos of him and Stephanie on a Mediterranean cruise the following month. The only person who knew the true depth of these betrayals was my best friend, Olivia. We'd been inseparable since college. Olivia was an ER nurse. She understood struggle and never judged my complicated feelings. She was the anchor of reason in my storm of resentment. Even at work, I was invisible. My boss, Mr. Henderson, had a knack for presenting my data models as his own. My colleague Derek would consistently vanish at 4 p.m., leaving me to clean up his messes. Yet somehow, his name was always the one mentioned in company-wide emails praising our team's success. Buying lottery tickets was my one small act of rebellion, a weekly ritual my family found endlessly amusing. My mother called it a tax on the statistically challenged. Leo joked I should just Venmo him the money directly. But for me, those tickets were a tiny, flickering candle of hope. I had dreams. I wanted to see the salt flats in Bolivia, to walk at the ancient streets of Rome. I wanted to go back to school for something that set my soul on fire, not just paid the bills. I wanted the peace of mind that comes from knowing a flat tire wouldn't trigger a financial avalanche. This was my life before Tuesday. Ordinary, difficult, and lonely. I had no idea a single piece of paper was about to detonate it all. The day I bought the winning ticket was my 34th birthday. I'd just survived a brutal week where Henderson had once again taken credit for my predictive model that I built that saved our biggest client a fortune. I stopped at Sal's Market, same as every Friday. "Happy birthday, Amy," Sal called out, his smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Thanks, Sal. The usual, and you know what? One extra for good luck," I said, handing him a 20 instead of my usual 10. On a whim, instead of a quick pick, I chose my own numbers, my birth month and day, my mother's birthday, my father's, Aunt Clara's, and Olivia's. 6 numbers representing the most significant people in my life, for better or for worse. That night, I celebrated with cheap Thai takeout and a bottle of wine. At 8:30, I lazily pulled up the lottery app on my phone. The first number matched. The second. My heart gave a little kick. The third, then the fourth. My palms were slick with sweat. The fifth, I was holding my breath, the silence in my apartment suddenly deafening. The sixth and final number. I stared at my phone for what felt like an hour, convinced my eyes were playing tricks on myself. I checked the official website. I rewound the live TV broadcast. There they were, my numbers. According to the Lottery Commission, I was the sole winner of $53 million. After taxes, it would be around $32 million, a sum so vast it felt like a figment of my imagination. I didn't sleep. I spent the night spiraling down an internet rabbit hole, reading horror stories about lottery winners, lives destroyed by greed, families torn apart, friends turning into predators. One article called "Winning the Lottery, the Quickest Path to Losing Everything You Care About." It was a digital graveyard of shattered lives. As dawn broke, casting a gray light over my cluttered living room, a cold, hard diamond of an idea began to form in the furnace of my resentment. I would claim the money, but I would tell absolutely no one, not even Olivia. I needed time. Time to plan, to think, before the vultures descended. That morning, I called in sick and made an appointment with a man named Philip Montgomery, a top-tier estate lawyer. Sitting in his opulent downtown office, I felt like an imposter in my worn jeans and faded jacket. I took a deep breath and slid the ticket across his polished mahogany desk and said, "I need to claim this, and I need to do it without anyone on earth knowing it was me." Over the next few weeks, Philip worked his magic. We established a blind trust, set up a network of diversified investments, and created a financial fortress around my newfound wealth. The money was real, sitting in accounts controlled by a legal entity with a name that had no connection to me. Yet, on the surface, nothing changed. I still went to work, still drove my rattling old Honda. The secrecy was a crushing weight. And so, the plan took shape. A test. A trial by fire. I would create a fiction where I was the one in need. I would approach each family member with the same desperate story and see who, if anyone, would extend a hand when they thought I had nothing to offer in return. Only then would I know who deserved a place in my new life? I ran the idea by Olivia over dinner, framing it as a hypothetical. I'm going to tell them I lost my job and I'm facing eviction, I said carefully. Her face clouded with concern. Amy, that sounds manipulative. Why would you put them and yourself through that? Because I'm tired of being the only one holding the safety net, I snapped, the words sharper than I intended. I just want to know who genuinely cares about me versus who sees me as a resource. She shook her head. I think you're playing with fire, and you're the one who's going to get burned. But I see that look in your eye. You've already made your mind. She was right. I had crafted the perfect lie. My startup had folded overnight after a funding round collapsed. I needed $5,000 to cover rent and medical expenses while I was looking for a new job. It was enough to be a serious request, but not an impossible sum for most of them. With a mix of dread and grim determination, I picked up the phone to make the first call. It was time to find out who my family really was. My mother was first. She answered, the sound of clattering dishes in the background. Amy, is everything okay? You sound awful. I launched into my story. Her initial sympathy quickly curdled into practicality. Oh, honey, that's terrible. But Warren and I just bought that boat. We're really cash poor at the moment. Have you asked your father? Or Chloe? Mark makes a fortune at the hospital. She promised to talk to Warren, but her tone was a closed door. Next, I met my father for coffee. He listened to my story with the detached air of a professor analyzing a historical text. When I asked for the loan, he leaned back, a deep sigh of disappointment escaping his lips. Amelia, this is a failure of planning. I've always preached the importance of a 6-month emergency fund. This will be a valuable, if painful, learning experience for you. He lectured me for 20 minutes on fiscal responsibility, patted my hand with patronizing pity, and paid for my coffee, as if it were a grand act of charity. My sister Chloe's response was a masterclass in performative sympathy. We sat in her cavernous kitchen, the air smelling of fresh-baked cookies and money. "Oh, you poor thing," she gasped. But when I mentioned the $5,000, her eyes darted away. "Oh, Amy, the timing is just awful. We just booked a family trip to Aspen, and the property taxes on this place are just obscene. Mark handles the finances, and he's so strict." She offered me the guest room, which I knew was filled with her unused Peloton equipment, an offer as hollow as it was insulting. My brother Leo was the most cutting. I texted him, laying out my entire situation. His reply, hours later, was a single sentence. "That sucks, sis. Super broke right now." Then silence. Days of it. He never called. He just ghosted me, the sister who had bailed him out more times than I could count. After a week of rejections, I was emotionally raw. The experiment had confirmed my deepest fears, but the confirmation was its own kind of agony. 7 people, all of whom I had helped without hesitation, had turned their backs on me. Then my phone rang. It was Aunt Clara. "Amy, honey, I just heard from your mother. Are you all right?" Her voice was like a warm blanket. We met for lunch the next day at a Greasy Spoon diner near her apartment. She looked tired, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. After I recounted my sob story, she reached into her worn purse and pulled out an envelope. "I want you to have this," she said, sliding it across the chipped Formica table. "It's $3,000. I know it's not everything, but it's what I have." I stared at the envelope, my throat closing up. "Clara, I can't. This is your savings." "Nonsense," she said firmly. "Family helps family. And listen, my pull-out sofa is lumpy, but it's warm. You are welcome for as long as you need." Tears streamed down my face, hot and real. This woman who had so little was offered me everything. Later that night, a horrible curiosity got the better of me. I did some digging. I found out the $3,000 was almost every penny she had. And worse, I discovered she'd recently been diagnosed with a chronic illness, and her medication costs had skyrocketed. The knowledge was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. The next evening, I had her over for dinner. "Clara," I began, my hands shaking, "I have to tell you something. I wasn't honest with you. I didn't lose my job." I told her everything. The test, the rejections, the pain of it all. She listened, her expression not of anger, but of deep, profound sadness. "Oh, Amy," she said softly, "I'm not mad. I'm just sad you felt you had to go to such lengths to find the truth." "You were the only one," I whispered. "The only one." She sighed. "People show you who they are when giving becomes inconvenient. My ex-husband taught me that. He drained my inheritance on a failed business venture and told me it was our money to lose. Some people see you as a person, and others see you as a resource. It's a painful lesson, but a vital one." She looked at me, her gaze piercing. "Money doesn't just reveal who others are, Amy. It reveals who we are. It's a powerful mirror." Her words hit me with the force of a tidal wave. "Clara," I said, taking a deep breath, "there's more. I won the lottery. $53 million. Her eyes widened, but she said nothing, allowing me the space to speak. "You are the only person on earth who knows." "Oh, honey, that changes everything." "No," I said, a sudden clarity cutting through my confusion. "It changes nothing. It just illuminates what was already there." A week later, I called a family meeting at my apartment. They all showed up, a flock of vultures drawn by the scent of drama. I stood before them, a strange calm settling over me. "Thank you for coming," I began. "I wanted to clear the air. The rumors are true. I lost my job and my finances are a wreck. In fact, I've decided to liquidate my assets, sell my things, and move away to start over." A ripple of shock and relief passed through the room. Relief that they wouldn't be asked for money again. "But before I go," I continued, my voice dropping to a steely calm, "I just wanted to understand a few things." I looked at my mother. "You said you were cash poor, but you just spent $10,000 on landscaping." I turned to my father. "You gave me a lecture on fiscal responsibility, a lecture you clearly didn't follow when you took a cruise on my dime." One by one, I calmly recited their excuses back to them, the hypocrisy hanging thick and heavy in the air. When I finished, the silence was absolute. They filed out, their faces a mixture of shame and anger, leaving me alone with my aunt. And for the first time, I felt free. 1 year later, my life is unrecognizable. I live in a beautiful, understated home with a garden that is my sanctuary. 3 blocks away, Aunt Clara lives in a charming, accessible house I bought for her, her health now stable with the best medical care money can buy. I established a foundation called the Clara Project, which provides grants and support to elderly people living in quiet desperation, a tribute to the one woman who showed me what true wealth is. Olivia, my rock, now works alongside me. My relationship with the rest of my family is cordial, distant, and honest. They believe I found success running my nonprofit. They never ask for details. Last week, I did one final thing. I sent a series of cashier's checks. One to my mother, one to my father, one to my sister, one to my brother. Each check was exactly $5,000. Tucked inside each envelope was a small, unsigned card with 7 words printed on it. "This is a reminder of the price of family." They never knew who it came from, but I know they understood. It wasn't a gift. It was a receipt. And final accounting of a debt they could never truly repay. The lottery didn't make me rich. It made me free. It gave me the clarity to see that the people who deserve a place in your life aren't the ones who show up when you have everything to give, but the ones who stay when you have nothing to offer but yourself. Have you ever had to test a relationship in your life? What truth did you uncover? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe for more real-life lessons that challenge our perspectives. And remember to share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth is not defined by what they can do for others. Thank you for listening.